your lead and turn it into gold. Welcome to Alchemy 101 on the Artist First Radio Network. All past shows are archived. You can find them at artistfirst.com. Now here's your host, Halo Marquis.
Hey, how's everyone doing tonight? So, welcome back to first live show in a little while, guys. I was out of town last week in Sedona, Arizona at this yoga festival, I guess is what you're supposed to call it. And it was very interesting because it was very different than any of the other ones that we've ever attended, which is not to say that it was not amazing in all sorts of other ways. So tonight, just because the size of this group that we had was smaller. And Jason, Donovan, how you guys doing? Dale, Sherry, welcome to the show tonight. You guys have any questions while we're getting into stuff tonight? Tonight's focus is really going to be about what I'm calling unlocking the magic box, which essentially is just the ways of different practices, different places, different ways of speaking, just a number of different ways of really unlocking and tapping into the energy meridians that give you access to these amazing gifts and abilities that we do all possess. So one thing that happened during this trip to Sedona is it was a good friend of mine's first time going to a thing like this, or directed, I guess, in that way, and had some very cool experiences before. But after like a multiple different versions of different experiences, like suddenly got to where things started feeling a bit more tangible. And so last week I was not able to do the show just because I was at this event. And even today, we lose track of time at different moments, and I was still in recovery mode. So luckily I was like, oh man, what should we do the show on? And everything just seemed to add up with how this trip went to sharing with you guys just some techniques to make these things much simpler, right? So Alchemy 101 on the show, whether you're with me on Artist First tonight or you guys with me live on Facebook, we really want to teach and talk about how to, acknowledge your lead and transform it into gold. And that's really taking all the different things that you have at your disposal, and learning how to really utilize them in the direction that lines up with your higher self, with your divine purpose while you're here. And so one of the most consistent conversations I had with people at this festival and at many other ones, just when you get into your faith folks, your energetics, your people that are out of tune with the normal world, right? The one very, very consistent conversation that we seem to all have was, we're all just out here trying to have fun and playing with every single moment that we get. And what's really interesting about that is, from the time that you're a child into whatever age you are right now, it's very, very easy. Jay Brawler, man, welcome to the channel tonight. It's very easy to lose track of time when you're having fun. And just, these always just ideas, guys, all right? So you try these out, see if they fit you, and if they work and lead you into some better things, then, fantastic. I hope it does. If not, as long as you're in the pursuit and this helps inspire you or whatever to get you to that next space, then that's all we're ever here for, right? So I don't know at what point it was for me in my life where the weird things start becoming more noticeable. But again, when you're a child, you can seem to have hours and hours and hours of time all disappear in a matter of moments, because in that space time where you're creating this just utmost joy, utmost intensity, utmost excitement, you're essentially creating like a little pocket of time in just this weird little field that sometimes is faster, sometimes it's slower. But when you're in those moments, you don't really care about the time. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh man, where did the time go? This is a form that we subconsciously accidentally affect our time continuum to a degree. But this one thing is something that, if you think back to the times that this has happened, know that this is a way that you've accessed the ether or the other dimensions, or whatever way that you want to contextualize it. And at the end of the day, guys, that's really where all your growth is going to come from, right? For trees, the only direction they know is up, right? The how, the why, the details is not so as important as long as the growth is continuous and is still directed. So getting away from the exacts. I'm not saying it's not important to know these things. It very much is, but there's moments that you will miss out on much bigger picture and much bigger understandings by not worrying about the details until after the moments, transpired, right? And once on Alchemy 101, we did an entire episode called Time Travel, and really just talking about how some people live in the future and some people live in the past, and because of that, they miss out on the present moment. And right here, guys, is where you have access to all these things. So it's very, very important that you're mindful of being here. Okay. So again, guys, everyone's coming to the show. Welcome tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot them out. Unlocking the magic box. Cornelius, welcome, brother. So there's lots of different cultures, there's lots of different studies, so on. And if you are in the show tonight, hopefully by now you do understand that we have not only our physical body, but our light and energy body, and also who knows how many other more than that we haven't even begun to fathom just at this point. But for the people that are out there that are very tangible with their energy, right? At some moment, whether it was from the time that you were a kid that you just never got untrained for it, or if it was you had some just very traumatic or very intense moment that activated these things for you, every single one of you, I imagine at some point has had at least one unexplainable thing happen to them. And a lot of times it's uncomfortable to talk about it because we're out there looking for validation and a way to fit in and all these things. And what's been so amazing, just as we keep crossing through these different ley lines and just through these different ascended trajectories that we seem to be on right now, it's just been very, very accelerated. And more and more people are becoming more free to talk about these things, right? So it's a very, very exciting time. So the first part that I'll talk about, just because it's probably going to be the most accessible to you, is a practice called Reiki, right? And there's other forms of it, but Reiki seems to be the base principle of it. If you're in the Phoenix area, there's schools like Swiha that you can go and learn about it. But a lot of times we grow with this development of energetic confusion, right? And it's something that just ends up getting shut off, and we get trained out of it being a real thing. And again, when you're getting into the regular 9 to 5 of things, that's the acceptable way of living life. And that's good and fine, right? If your life is great and you're healthy and you're happy, then I would not say that there's any reason to change that. However, if you've heard about these energetic people and these hippies and these crazy crystal chasers and tree huggers and people astral projecting and all these different things, and that's something that intrigues you, at least pokes out to your curiosity, understand that there are people right now on the planet that just can't see the color green. And we've all come to the conclusion that's acceptable and that's understandable. Now, that's not of any fault of their own. That's just simply part of one of who knows how many senses that they don't completely have access to. So in the same way that we can understand that and accept that, you also have to understand that some of your energy systems that are out there, again, not of any fault of your own, just have like an immunity to these things. Now, in the same way that the eyesight thing can be corrected, so can your energy system, right? Now, if you guys are familiar with me, I own Mistech, which is a biotech company that uses a frequency to stabilize the energy field of the body. This is a very different thing than what we're talking about tonight, but still is equally important, right? So we have our physical body, we have our light body. When your physical body is working very well, your light body is more accessible. It has more space. It has more of a glow to it, if you will. And so, any of the people out on the channel, anyone that's out on Artists First, if you know any athletes like that take it very, very seriously, that have a very physically fit prowess of their body, these people surprisingly, and it's crazy because I've talked to so many that have no idea about crystals or energy meridians or sacred spaces, any of these things, but can really feel these things. And it's because they've dedicated and disciplined part of their mind and body to self-mastery. And guys, that is the very first part of it. So if you're not sure how to get started into the self-mastery, again, I recommend going to some place and trying a Reiki session at some point. Because when you make that conscious decision, your subconscious and your energy body become excited and go, oh, this is what you want to do. This is what we're going to play now. And it will become more active, and it will start making things more tangible, more frequently, more intensely. And again, guys, the things that we're talking about, in the same way that there's ways that one diet might work for one person, but won't work for another person, maybe meditation is not going to be the thing for you. Right? Maybe Reiki is not going to be the thing for you. That's okay, right? As long as you're testing out and putting out feelers for what may or may not work for you, you will come across it. And just to kind of solidify that point, right? So when I was in Phoenix, there's a mineral store inside one of the malls called Black Market Minerals. Shout out Amy, love you. Hope you hear the show. And people there, when they would have an experience with Mistech, would ask me like, so what crystal do you think that I should get? Now, this is the next thing, guys. Get into the habit of chasing after crystals, right? Going out and collecting them, going gathering them. Find amazing jewelry makers like my very good friend V Joe. She's in the channel, guys. Check her out. Stone by D. Amazing stuff. Because these crystals, guys, that, you know, even Nikola Tesla believed that they had energy beings within them. Whether we understood how to communicate with them and harness them, that was still something even Tesla believed to be a very real thing. Now, there's also scientific reasons, and I apologize. It's been forever since I read this book. If someone's in the channel and can, you know, if they know it, please, you know, shout out, let me know. But there was a gentleman that he had two first names. It was like Stephen Michael or Michael Stephen, something like that. And the way I remember reading this book was he was trying to disprove that crystals did anything to the body, right? And he went to some college and gave out 20 quartz crystals to different students and gave them like a little journal for them to fill out at the end of every night over 30 days, knowing that this would prove that crystals absolutely didn't do anything, which is, you know, that's a good way to do it. Good experiment. Unfortunately, at the end of the time, what ended up happening was contextually all the students' journals, just how he had the questions set up and everything, lined up almost exactly. And he said, no, this can't be right. So then he switched over just to regular quartz. And then he switched over to smoky quartz. And then he switched over to sodalite. And he went through about a dozen different crystals. And every single time, though the answers changed depending on the crystal, the group of students always seemed to resonate almost the exact same. So what he decided to do was to try to figure out the scientific reasoning for that. Now, earlier we were talking about the body's light field, right? The aura body, right? So your body emits this very small electromagnetic field and more than that, guys. So you have to understand when people are like, well, can we measure these things? As soon as someone can show me a measurement that shows human consciousness and the human soul, we have something to talk about. In the meantime, we should just be excited and know that there's things that we just don't know yet and that we don't understand. We can feel it. We have access to it. But, you know, like many times on the show, we talk about ultraviolet light was not discovered until 1803. That didn't make it an unreal thing for almost 2,000 years. It was just something that we didn't understand. We didn't have a way to measure or define it. Still there, still can manipulate it, and so on. And that's how it is with your energy body, right? So the science of what this guy discovered was, and he, again, very sciencey, so put it in the terms of the electromagnetic field that was created by the body, the molecular structure of different crystals, right? So if you guys are with me on Facebook, you can see I've got this very cool little amethyst slab. Now, at a molecular level, the structure of this crystal not only makes it purple, but makes it this exact shape and design, right down to every part of it, to the hardness, everything. Now, when that type of energy and that structure gets within your electromagnetic field, it redirects it back in a very specific way after going through that matrix of crystals. And the way your energy comes back has a very specific type of effect. Now, this exact same thing with this piece of pyrite, right? Obviously, looking at it, its structure is also completely different. So the way that it bounces back your energy, and this is the way that he came to his scientific conclusion as to the way that crystals can affect the body, right? Now, if you couple that with what Tesla was talking about, with them already being beings of energy on top of that, then again, that's an amazing way that you can start learning how to work on and charge your own energy body, right? Does it make sense, hopefully, so far? So with Reiki, this is usually a thing where you're going to have another person go and help you with this, right? With crystals, this is another secondary tool that you will need to have within your field in order to have access to this as well, right? The point I'm getting to this, guys, is while you're learning to unlock the magic box and getting access to these different parts of your being, there's not going to be one way, but almost every single thing is going to require you to have a secondary tool, experience, or person in order to help you get to what you need, right? And that should be an okay thing, right? And it's weird because you even will get to where you'll talk with people that tell you that they have mentors that are crystals, that they just have a very calming effect on them and they learn things and get downloads, which sounds really, really interesting until it happens to you. And then it's a very interesting moment, because then again, once your brain synapses create a certain pathway, it becomes easily accessible over and over and over. So you want to create patterns and routines throughout these different things. So if you do start, say, like Reiki treatments, it's something that you should stick with. Right? Do it as often as your Reiki master says, but give it definitely a few tries. And while you're doing that, go to places where, like I said, black market minerals, I would tell people go in and just feel out what crystal feels good to you, right? Not necessarily what looks good to you, but just what feels good, right? And it's difficult to understand it until you go and do it. And then after you guys, if you do this, go to any store. And when you do this, just go online and type in the name of the crystal and type in the word metaphysical properties. And I can all but guarantee you every single time that stone is going to line up specifically and directly with whatever it is that you need in your life right in that moment. And even as I was in Phoenix this last week, a friend of mine that I went in with, exact same thing happened. Like, what about this one? What about this one? And everything just kept lining up with, oh, that's something I'm trying to work on right now. Oh, well, that makes sense. And it's just interesting how these things will continue to line up over and over and over, right? But you have to go out and take the steps. So aside from those two, we'll get into something that is a little bit more physical based. And that's what I was talking about earlier for working out, right? And whether that's that you're doing weightlifting, you're doing cardiovascular, yoga seems to be the magic trick for whatever reason. That seems to be the favorite, easiest step that opens up the energy meridians in the body, because not only are you stretching your muscles, getting your body where they need to be, as you're stretching, as you're doing these different poses, you're actually creating very specific circuit boards with your biomechanical machine that you have that will help open up these parts of your body that lets energy flow through them. Right now, admittedly, I have not been able to stick with yoga no matter how many times I try it, because I'm too impatient for the physical parts of doing things. And so for me, meditating, the crystal work, Reiki treatments, things like that, those are the things that work very, very well for me. But I also know people that were on a very specific diet, that were in a very specific religion, that a very specific lifestyle. And they didn't start doing yoga. They didn't start working out more at the gym, but they stopped the routines that were keeping them within the same mundane life form, if you will, right? Now, the moment that they stopped following the religious practice that they were in, they felt that they had more access to source energy, and they felt more led and not being so misdirected by listening to other people. So after that, decided, well, I'm not going to not just eat pork. I'm just not going to eat any meat at all. And it's a very interesting thing, because a lot of different religions, a lot of different sacred places, a lot of different sage people will tell you that, consuming flesh in life is a way to toxify the body and the energy meridians of that. So I still know people that do eat meat and are incredibly powerful with all the type of works and practices that they do, because that's what works for them. But on the other hand, this gentleman I'm talking about, the moment he stopped eating meat, everything, he started losing weight. His mind became sharper. His ability to focus and meditate became greater. And that was just a very simple thing of routine. So guys, the steps that we're talking about for unlocking the magic box tonight on Alchemy 101 is not necessarily just only spiritual based, right? It's going to get you there, because anytime that you're working towards self-development, you are going to get in tune and in touch with who you really are. And then it's just going to go in all sorts of different directions. But the self-discipline and the self-learning, the self-honesty, those are the main steps and the main tools that you absolutely have to take in order to get there. So just understand, these are different tools and practices, but ultimately it's going to be up to you and your intent. So if the woo-woo stuff, as they call it out there, is not a thing that feels in line with your higher self or your comfortability, then, just do these other disciplines. And that can be dieting. It can be going to the gym more, just getting out and reading certain books, right? And so I'm good skimmer when it comes to books. And so again, I'm very big on context, so I can read very, very quickly and pick up most of the details, and what resonates sticks. So there's books out there like the Kabbalion, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I mean, there's so many different ones out there. There's Star Magic by Jerry Sargent, amazing book, The Magic of Reiki. And so even if you don't want to do the physical things towards working out, doing the physical parts of just reading and doing more research into these things as well. If you're not a big reader, I'm getting ready to get pretty deep back into spirit science again, just as a refresher. That's an amazing channel on YouTube. We've talked about the show a lot. And again, guys, none of these things that you're going to read, you're going to research, have to be the absolute end all be all, right? But they are amazing pointers and amazing direction practices just to, again, get in touch with this part of the being. Now, what's really cool is I've talked to, I don't know how many people, and even myself included, that sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's 1 to 2 days, but all of a sudden everything starts synchronistically just lining up perfectly, right? And you start seeing it's 3:33. Oh, it's 11:11. These things that just start matching up and seemingly effortless, right? Really good friend of mine, Jason the Wizard, saw him. We made some Organite. Well, he made some Organite and then hooked it up. Tyrone, how you doing, brother? And it was really interesting because one of the things that I very much am a big practicer on is creating and doing a whole lot of nothing and still getting a lot accomplished at one time, right? Using one small vibrational act that just creates this very specific ripple, right? It's not doing anything. It's just doing things at the right specific moment so everything is overly efficient. And when I was talking with Jason about that, he goes, oh, yes, Wu Wei, right? The art of doing nothing by accomplishing much. Something like that, right? You guys got the context. So even things like that, when you get into the ether, as it is, you will just start having these things happen naturally, and the levels of stress and the levels of worry, they seem to almost magically go away. And that's why when I was at the Sedona Festival this week, I've been going a little stir crazy here in Portland just because I've been inside so much, working on so many things for Mistech and getting ready to move to Phoenix and just a lot of different things. And I have not been in a group of energetic people in a very long time. So as Nadia and I were there setting up, and we're going to talk about some of that stuff here in a minute as well. New skincare line that we've kind of partnered up on and have Mistech into. It's absolutely amazing. But as we're setting up, we're getting directed to our location to set up. And there's just a gentleman that's there. He just got his spot, introduces himself. I was like, oh, I'm Halo, man. And just gave me this like big hug, right? And if anyone out there has been to one of these festivals, been to one of these expos and has the hug I'm talking about, like immediately I was just like, oh, man. And Nadia looks at me, I'm like, I just got the first hug, like, I think this whole year that I've actually got. Like, it was amazing. And immediately I was like in resonance back with the energetic people and the people of the fairy folk, the wizards, the energetics, all these people, right? And every single person just had the exact same level of de-stress and relaxation and real joy, guys, like absolute real joy. And again, these people still talked about different problems that they had in their life, right? I'm not saying that once you unlock these things that you're not going to have problems, but the way that you're going to perceive them and the way that you can transmute them and alchemize them is going to be completely different than anything that you've ever done. And I feel like this is one of the reasons that that people want this stuff, right? There's only so much that we can squeeze out of this mundanity that we have, but when you can tap into the infinite, right, and you can tap into real alchemy and real change and real emotion, like life becomes this incredible playground, and it becomes just amazing experience after experience where you can help and heal and love on other people, and it just becomes about this outward motion of setting into vibrational rifts that you don't always know what's going to happen, but it's always progressive, it's always positive, and it's always growing, right? So it's absolutely incredible. And yeah, the Alchemist camp, man, I'm so excited, man. We'll talk about that tonight. It looks like we're going to be at Burning Man this year, guys. I'm really excited. I'll get into more details when I've got some confirmation, but that's another thing as far as talking about steps that you can take, right? So part of unlocking the magic box, going to this festival that was in Sedona, being around all these other people, because guys, when you get to this point where the box is open, the amount of energy that radiates from your being, your aura field, is contagious. And when you get a bunch of these people around, it's just this ultimate amount of just glow and ease and self-realization, because when you don't have people around that are judging you like you would in the normal 9 to 5, your true real version could come out. And when that happens, that's part of what allows the energy of your beings, of your chakra points, to really flow. And then you kind of question what you've been doing with your life this entire time. And that's okay. Everything that you do up until the moment that you arrive is preparing you for it. So guys, you don't have to rush any of these things, right? Taking the steps is going to help you get there, but ultimately it's going to happen when you are prepared. So just know it does take time. Michael Jordan probably didn't dunk the ball the very first time. It took practice, and then, eventually now he's got shoes. So you can start from any space and accomplish what seems to be impossible. It just has to be up to you to actually follow through and find what works for you, right? Very, very easy. So we've covered Reiki, we've covered crystals, we've covered Dasha, how you doing? Welcome tonight. Miss you so much. Guys, Dasha Shar, amazing. Yes, definitely check out her site. Amazing book. Great person. We did a show also on Artists First. You guys can find that in the archive. Dasha Shar, check that out. She's great. So we talked about the physical disciplines. We've talked about dieting to a degree. We talked about getting into the communities for it, getting to these festivals. Now, okay, well, I was going to save this one to the end, but we'll get into some other stuff at the undecided. So the other part is going to the sacred places of power, right? And this is very, very, very important. There's going to be some other tools as well, but since we've talked about Sedona so much, if you guys are not familiar with this, Sedona is known for the energy vortexes that are there. And some people say, what is that? And it's basically a place where the same way the human body has the energy meridians that kind of mimic the circulatory system of the body, the earth itself also has very specific energy meridians that are referred to in different places as ley lines, energy meridians, and such. And where these things intersect, it's crazy. You can look it up. All the old temples, all the old pyramids, all the spaces of power are actually built directly over where the major ley lines intersect. It's really, really interesting. It's like the ancients knew something that we pretend that we don't know now. But if you look it up, it's not even something that can be adjusted or accidentally put together. It's just something that is. It lines up perfectly on the pattern. So Sedona is one of these places. And if you Google Sedona, type in vortex trees, and it's crazy because some of the plants that are close to these vortexes actually grow in spirals. So the energy is so chaotic and intense that it's physically shaping the physical form of the trees and plants around it. There's a place called Red Rock Crossing that when you go, like all the trees just suddenly become white, right? Like all the energy of the trees, the color just got sucked out, but it's the same trees. And so again, this is one of these places as a place of power. And this is why people go to get healed and why there's so many energy healers there, because again, guys, your body is this amazing conduit. So once you open your meridians, you can learn how to tap into these energies, right? The same practices that we've talked about to get everything flowing within your energy being, you can duplicate them to enhance those energies and enhance those powers, enhance your chakra points. And it's really incredible. There's different ways to do it, but the people that go to Sedona, they've really learned how to channel that energy and use their body as a conduit, as a form of healing. It's absolutely incredible. Now, as many times as I've gone to Sedona, one of the vortexes there is called Bell Rock, right? And it's way up on top of this big mountain thing. And still to this day, I think it's maybe been 13 times I've been there, I cannot stay standing when I step into this vortex, right? And I've never known why, but like as soon as I get into it, you just feel it and you just kind of sink to the ground and go into almost a meditative state until you can manage to crawl out. I just don't know how else to describe it. It's really, really intense. Well, this weekend, because I was at this event, I had an opportunity to talk with a lot of people that were from Sedona. And this one, Rebecca, oh man, she was like the sweetest woman I met there, just this little light. She was just incredible. And as I'm telling her that, she started laughing. She goes, well, Bell Rock is the heaviest of all the vortexes. And I go, what? And she goes, yeah, they all have their own weight. And if you're, real sensitive, then that's probably what's happening. And I was just like, oh, again, contextual, guys, what we can understand and what we can put into our communication is our best way of being able to explain what's happening to us. So to have her say something like that, to me, that's confirmation of that energy field actually being heavy, and that explains that. Now, this is another really weird thing. Anyone that knows me, whether it's in person on the show, knows I'm the most anti-sleep person that you will ever meet, right? Your body needs rest, meditate, save part of your life. Don't give it up. It's a trick. But at the end of every night in Sedona, like 7:30, I'm on the phone with my wife and she's like, so what are you gonna do tonight? I'm like, I'm gonna go to bed. That sounds disgusting, but that's what I'm gonna do. And I was actually excited about it. And the next day I'm talking to people there at the event again. And like, how was your night? I was like, I went to bed. And I was so disappointed. And one of the guys go, we have the energy's been real heavy here, for quite some time. And even like the natives, when they used to come, they would come in only for a certain amount of time, do their work, and then get out before they got drained. And so, if your body's not used to it, that's probably just zapping you. I'm just sitting here looking at them like, how are you in my brain? It was just crazy. So every single thing that I was experiencing, there was a metaphysical answer, which again is just science that scientists don't like the answers yet because there's no money in it, but that's okay. That's a different story. We'll get to that on another night. But so going to these places of power, again, the person that was traveling with me, getting there, at a couple of different points, like had even mentioned, like, wow, yeah, you can start kind of feeling some things, but never felt stuff from crystals before. Right now, this is uh, just because we're in the Sedona part and this happened there. This is perfect. I go to give her a Lemurian quartz crystal, which, if anyone's not familiar with that, is a very high vibrational crystal. If anyone's not familiar with the term high vibrational, that means it's moving very, very fast. Okay, I'm just gonna give you guys some little baseline points here. So as soon as she touches the crystal, her eyes kind of light up a little bit, and you can see her whole body just have this little shift. And she goes, "Well, that's an excitable one, isn't it?" And I looked at her for a second. I go, "You know what's really funny about that is excitable means, movement very fast. And that's a high vibrational crystal. So again, the only way to describe it contextually, understanding that, was this is something that's moving very fast. So in that moment, being in a place where the energy meridians are really open, the ley lines there, the vortexes are going on, and having a crystal that's very, very strong to finally have something like that be tangible, be a real thing. Now that that's happened, the synapses in the brain, again, that pathway has been created, and there's all sorts of different little crystals and configurations and grids that we can use for her to start being able to harness more energy, feeling it, and so on. So it took lots of different little steps, and there's still going to be plenty more, even with what I've learned and will be learning, and with whatever you've learned out there. It's always never going to be everything, right? You're always going to be learning more steps, more ways, going farther down the rabbit hole, and teaching other people, guys. I'm telling you, that is what I would say is the biggest key, aside from getting into the communities or the sacred places. Even if it's just little stuff, right? I know a really good friend of mine, actually one of my mentors in a lot of ways, she had just barely got it started in doing energy work, and immediately went into doing crystal wrapping and teaching people how to do it. And everything just bloomed and went from that. Because, guys, again, when you get into your habit and you get into your place and you get into your practice of what works for you, when you start introducing that to other people, your creative energy and such will start to come out and will start to really direct you and push you into ways that's going to continue to allow your conduit to grow and give you more access. Name of the crystal. Sierra Cody was asking about, Lemurian crystal. And you can look up, there's lots of lore behind Lemuria and Lemurians, and that will give you a decade of research if you really wanted to get into it. But yeah, they're absolutely incredible. With Mistech, guys, this year, just so you know, we are planning on doing more crystal wraps. We're going to have Lemurian things available. We are also, and this is another part of unlocking the magic box, guys, another tool, Organite, or organ harmonizers, organ arcs, right? There's lots of different ways to call them, but we're going to start having very specific generators built by my very good friend Jason the Wizard, incredible guy. And if you guys can see on the show, I've got this little heart pendant that I got from him, and immediately putting it on just had me like grounded and spacey at the same time. It's a really good place to be. It's my favorite. So getting into organ and looking into things like that as well, right? And really, guys, I'm telling you, whether you're getting into the Lemurian crystals, you're getting into the Reiki, you're getting into the yoga, you're traveling, just stick with it and just keep duplicating the same things. Because again, as we've talked about on the show so many times, everything that you do is transferred energy. Nothing's ever destroyed. So whether you have access to it right now or not, just know that it's always building towards and progressing towards something. Remember, your ego is the thing that has a deadline. Right. And what do we say? The ego is not the amigo. So you don't have to worry about rushing any of it. Right. When you enjoy the process, you're going to start finding out that really interesting things are happening around you. You just haven't been paying attention to them. And then once you start seeing it, it's endless what you will see. Now, that's going to bring me to my next tool. Right. And these tools also, guys, when you go to these festivals, you go to these expos, all these tools that I'm talking about, all these practices, there are people there that are much more mastered and much more expert in these things than I am. And so that's why it's really important that you get out and do that and find what does resonate with you. So with your senses and being able to access more of these things, right? One of the most amazing tools out there that you guys can find is this amazing liquid or powder called Ormus, right? Monatomic white gold. It's incredible stuff. And what I've got is from the arcanum.life, right? And I know the guy Sky, amazing guy, very, very powerful friends, very wise, very loving crew. and this Ormus is 100 milliliters, and you just take a little bit of this stuff. And if you've ever heard in different mythological stories or different religions, different practices, or like the ancient Egyptians digesting or eating gold, it's actually mostly thought to believe like it's Ormus, which is a very baseline element, and that again requires an entire show for us to get it. Yes, my love. So my wife jumped in the channel, and just want to point out Sedona's son definitely gave me a nice little blistered tan on my nose. So thank you, baby. Appreciate you. We'll massage it later. It'll be good. So Ormus, when you take this, at the beginning of the show, we talked about the light body, the physical body, and who knows how many more. But Ormus is one of these things that really links your light body with your physical body. And everyone that I've introduced it to, and if you haven't tried this and you have tried Ormus before, I really highly recommend that you try this as a step. When you take Ormus, usually it's sublingual. So before you take it, find like a tapestry. And guys, it's just an element. So it's not a drug. It's not a chemical. It's literally a mineral that just happens to do some very amazing things. All right. So I'm not saying go out and do any crazy things. Don't worry about that. This is just, you can order online, completely safe. But when you take it, find like a tapestry or a painting or something that has a bunch of different colors into it, right? And I'm not saying study the entire thing, but just very gently, just give it a little 30-second pass over and just kind of look at the colors and the patterns and whatever you can see. Then you're going to take your Ormus, you're going to put under your tongue, wait 30 seconds, wait a minute, wait 2 minutes, go back and look at this exact same thing that you were looking at. And every time, every person I've shown this to, an interesting happens. The colors become more vibrant. It's almost like there's more spectrums of the color that you now can see. Things become more detailed, they become more sharp, they become more focused. And so as it helps your light body and your physical body become more merged, like Goku and Vegeta, right? You get access to more power, more energy, more of the senses that you have as your human being, right? Or as you're being human. So Ormus is another amazing, amazing tool that you can take. Okay, now I want to wait towards the end of the show to talk about the last one because, in case any kids are listening, this is the non-PG part, depending on where you are. And so a lot of people at these retreats, I guess, if you will, especially in like Peru and things, will go down the psychedelic route of things, right? And using plant-based medicines as ways of detoxing their body of the bad diet and the bad TV shows and the bad radio and the bad electromagnetic pollution and just all the things that really have corrupted the DNA and being of what you're capable of. You have to have a way to get that out and detox that. So people go and do things like ayahuasca and DMT and a number of different things that are there. Some people even use cannabis. Some people use LSD, shrooms. There's a lot of different, what they consider, again, medicines, if you will, to detox the body. But a lot of times these things also harmonize in a very specific way that puts you very deep into the ether. Or the other realms, the other dimension, the spirit world, whatever, guys. Again, it's all the same stuff. We're always just talking about context, right? The word red and the word roja mean the exact same thing, but it's just coming from two different languages. And really, when we're talking about energy, magic, mana, God, source, it's the exact same thing, right? And this is why living and understanding from context is so, so important. So when you take these different plant-based medicines, a lot of times, guys, just like I mentioned before, you need a secondary thing or secondary person. Luckily, with a lot of these retreats where they're going the route of doing the plant-based medicines or combo or hape, whatever it might be, there's almost always certainly a very specifically practiced elder medicine man that's been his entire life, his entire divine purpose while he's here is to walk people through these things, right? So in no way am I condoning you're saying you should go out and do a bunch of crazy things on your own and go out, but go and ask questions, go and do your research, go and find people that are experts in these things and have mastered it. And if it seems like it's an experience that might get you to where you need to be, then you do whatever it is that you got to do. That's not up to me or up to anybody else to judge that. Let's see. Jason, tiredness upgrade required. Also, Jason the Wizard, my guy. A lot of stuff. Yep. Thank you, brother. Thank you. So yeah, guys, when we get ready to start launching our organ and devices, harmonizers, different things like that, there's an amazing gentleman that I've been working with for a really long time that I've seen have him literally predict or create, if you will, like rain in Phoenix at different times. And it's a weird thing, but again, when you have these experiences, it's very difficult to undo them. So it's incredible. So last thing I want to talk about tonight, guys, on the show, and thank you. And if anyone has any questions before, while we're going to be wrapping up in the next 15 minutes or so, just shoot them out. No problem. Newest tool that we've created at Mistech, right? And guys, this is really, really important. So with Mistech, and I try to keep the Alchemy 101 and the Order of Alchemy stuff separate from Mistech as much as I can, so I don't do too many shameless plugs, but it does happen. So at this festival, we did a pre-launch of a really good friend of mine, Nadia Lee's natural skincare line that's going to be launching very, very soon, called Pro Priest. Right now, what's amazing about this stuff, guys, is we've got body butter. She's created lip balms, bath soaks, shower melts, all sorts of different things. And there's some things that I don't want to talk about yet, because when they come out, we need time to make them, and you guys are going to go nuts about this stuff. But what I can tell you is, because of the way that she's been making this stuff, we've actually been able to infuse Mistech into it as well. Now, this is a really, really weird thing. If anyone out there has tried Mistech, especially if you tried multiple pieces, when you put this on and your body shifts to the 7.83 hertz and kind of detoxes all the electromagnetic pollution from your body, a lot of people can physically feel it. And in a lot of cases, it's the first time they feel energy, like we were talking about with Reiki and crystals and things like that. But it's a physical thing that's happening. And because it's so similar, again, it's creating a very similar neural pathway that gives them access to be able to start feeling it. So we've had people that tried the bath soak, and it zapped them so much that their pain was just gone for 3 days. It said they were like almost numb, right? Other people put the body butter all over, and we've got, I believe it's arrowroot powder she has. It's amazing stuff. And because it was covered the entire body vibrated in such a way that you felt kind of buzzed and out of it and very connected. But these, again, are things that are duplicating what happens to your energy field and your energy body when it's working in the right way. So this year for Mistech, guys, we are planning on launching all sorts of new products, all sorts of new items, still frequency based, but ones that are designed to help you become more in tune with your divine instrument, right? Working out that perfect conductor that you have, so you can go out and do the works and do the impact that makes you happy, that makes you excited, that makes you feel like you're making an impact, that you're making a difference. And guys, I'm not saying that there's people out there that just want to clean and that's all the impact that they want, right? Everything that we talk about on the show doesn't mean that that's the only way to live life or the only way to be happy, or that you need to be into these spiritual, overly done practices, right? That's not necessarily the requirement. But getting in tune with who you are, understanding what you're capable of, and really finding your divine path is all that we're all here for. And if you can take that and offer that in any way, in any form that you can create a new positive vibration for somebody else, then in my opinion, you're doing divine work. And that doesn't have to be religious based. It doesn't have to be spiritual based, but respecting and understanding that we're all many fractions of this divine being, and respecting it in that way is just something that should be overly exciting and really joyous. And I think that is what makes the people like us that go to these things so attracted to other people that are after it, because once you've felt this type of love, which is very different than how humans operate. And I say it that way because the human norm is best man for himself, and it is to survive. And these people that are living in, like I said, almost in the Fey realms, in the energetic places, in the ether, they're the ones that are living from abundance. And it's not even a level of hope, right? It's not even a level of wishing. It's a level of understanding that this divine being that I have is a giant magic box, and that this plane that we're on right now is really just a playground. So open your box, take the toys out and play. Guys, this is all we're here for. That's it. That's all we have to do. Oh yes, the divine nectar bombs. Yeah, so guys, interesting thing, and we'll get into it on the show, but some people once their energy ready to become active, right? And I believe the way Jason described, part of it was like the lymphatic system becomes more active, right? So as you get into these different practices, you might start having different physical things that happen. And some people, it's headaches. Some people, it's way more sleep. Some people it's being awake way more. Some people will even start to, I don't want to say sweat because that's not the right term, but like have lots of extra moisture around them for no apparent reason. So as you're going through these practices, just keep an eye out for the different little physical changes that happen throughout your day, your thought patterns, things like that. And the last part of this, guys, with opening the magic box, I didn't want it to be the first one because it should be an ongoing thing. And that is, of course, meditation. So after we've covered all these other things, right? The most subtle, easiest way from start to finish to get into this place is just getting into a place of solitude and meditating. And even when you're doing that, the activations of what's happening into your body will have a profound effect on what's happening, even though you're not doing anything. And again, that goes back to the same idea of the Wu Wei, right? So guys, tonight Alchemy 101, we got into unlocking the magic box, right? And that was just going through different things like Reiki, crystals, meditations, festivals, expos, biohacking tools, guys. There's things like sound beds out there that just literally send a huge pulse of energy into your being. There's tools out there like Ormus, monatomic white gold, orgone harmonizers, tons of different types of crystals, crystal wraps, energy healers, books. Guys, the point of all this that you should be taking away from is there's not one way to do it. Whatever leads you to your greatest excitement is going to be the best tool for that. But first, you have to recognize that you do actually even have a magic box, right? So if you had a magician and he had a hat on and didn't know that he could pull a rabbit out of there, he might not ever try it. But the moment that he reaches his hand in and finds a trap door, ta-da! This is where the show happens. So know that you have access to everything that's out there. Guys, the multiverse is beyond real. You've lived it multiple times. You're making decisions that are changing your reality in every moment. So instead of choosing to put on the 9-to-5 suit and everything, put on your wizard gear, put on your fairy wings, put on your unicorn, whatever it is that fits your archetype, that makes you want to explore the ether and explore the energy out there. Do that thing. And then whatever that archetype does, when you see it in shows, when you read about it in books, when you see it in video games or anime, duplicate those same type of practices, and interesting things are going to happen, and different parts of what's around you all the time are going to become more present because you're tuning into that game. And that's what's interesting, guys. Even when we're talking about Mystech, it's always about tuning into a very specific frequency. So whether you're doing it physically or you're doing it energetically, it still has to be something that you choose to tune into, right? So speaking of that, guys, tonight, thank you for tuning in to me on Artist First. And if you're with me on Facebook, I appreciate you guys so much. Next week, I believe we're going to be doing an interview, but we're going to keep it a surprise for who it is, just because, yeah, we might do it a little bit early. But anyways, guys, I love you so much. Thank you for coming on the show with me. This has been Halo Marquise, the Alchemist. Let's all work on being better humans. I'll see you guys next week. Love you. Thank you.